Let's start talking about enterprise software development in this video. My goal here is always to help you get jobs and be successful in your software engineering career. And enterprises such as banks, telecoms, insurance companies are very important and they hire a lot of people. They need a lot of software. So we're going to start talking about this context, applications that need to live for many years, decades, pass through lots of people, be easy to hire for, and be reliable, secure, fast, and so on. So for that, we're going to need good tools, and we're going to use two very mature and reliable tools in this video, Quarkus and Vaadin. So Quarkus is the base Java framework that we're going to use. So those companies are very often using Java. And I don't think that the language is the most important part here because usually in the enterprise context, we're going to pick a library or a framework that's adapted to the problem that we want to solve, and that will give us the language. So let's start with doing web apps now. And for that, we need a framework to give us data access, web, HTTP, HTTPS, and so on. And Quarkus is going to be very fine for that. Quarkus is originally created and maintained by Red Hat. It's 7 years old, but the technology behind it, so the components of Quarkus, such as CDI for dependency injection, JAX-RS for RESTful web services, Persistence API, and Hibernate for data access, those are around for way longer and are things that we can really trust and build upon. And being supported by a company is important, just as well as being an open source project is important, because being open source means we can learn, help, build, contribute in an open project without paying for licensing or anything like that. But if our company, if we take the step and bring it to the enterprise, they may need more people, such as consultants. They may need security support, operation support, training, certification, and all that is managed by Red Hat. So you can have access to that if your company needs it, and also individually work on the open source side of things. So that's super nice. And the same is true for Vaadin. Vaadin is a web framework. It will give us web components, buttons, event listeners, the user experience in general. And that's built and distributed by Vaadin Limited, and it's up since 2002. So more than 2 decades in the wild and doing great in my opinion. It's a very fine web framework and a tool that I like to work. And being in the Java platform means that we can use it without changing context. So for our cognitive load, it's much better. So that's what we're going to be using today. And it's used in many enterprise contexts. And I hope you will learn and enjoy that. So I created a new repository here called Insurance Hub to make it clear that this is an enterprise insurance app we're going to talk about in this context. And there is already a how to integrate Vaadin and Quarkus. So using Quarkus with Vaadin, you can find that on the Vaadin docs. And there you find the Quarkus base starter link to this repository, base starter flow Quarkus, which is already built for you as an example from Vaadin of how to use Quarkus. So I'll just download this code. I'll download the zip for this repo, and I can just copy that into my VS Code. So let's go ahead, copy that into VS Code, start a new terminal, and unzip base. This will give us our base starting point, and I could just run this Maven wrapper and get it running right away, but I want to show a little bit more and my preferred way of setting these projects up. Let me delete the zip file. And again, you could use SDK Manager to manage the Java or install Java by hand. The way I like to do it is using DevBox. So DevBox is a tool from Justify to make portable dev environments that work on any machine. So if you download this code and run it, it will run the same without dependency errors or without needing to install more tools. So I'll get started with DevBox init, and that will create this DevBox JSON file. And with that, I can add a virtual machine. So DevBox search will search for DevBox packages. And in this case, for Quarkus, Graal VM is a great option for Java virtual machine because besides the Java virtual machine mode, the JRE mode, we can also compile to binary, to native binaries, and do all sorts of crazy stuff with GraalVM. We're gonna do that later. Even support other languages like Kotlin, Scala, Python. It's not only Java. So let me pick the 25 latest version here with this package name and DevBox add that. We'll add this to our package list. And there is also a very important utility, which is the Quarkus CLI. We don't actually need it to run the project. We can do everything from Maven or the Maven wrapper that's already here, but Quarkus make our life easier from the command line with this tool. And with that, I can type devbox shell and it will give me a shell with all those things installed. So now I can type Java version and check that I have the exact version of Java that I specified. And you, in your clone, will have the same. So you don't need to install Java, install Quarkus CLI in your machine, install DevBox, run DevBox shell, and you will have the same thing that I have here. I'll rename from this base starter flow name to IH for Insurance Hub and VDN for Vaadin. Because we're going to have other modules in this app, we're going to see data authentication, all the enterprise requirements are going to be here, including microservices, AI agents, and so on. But for now, let's start with the basics, having our screen up and running. Also, I recommend taking a look at this POM XML file, the Maven declaration, and set, I like to set the repo name as org ID, so this will be Insurance Hub, and the folder name as Artifact ID. So this is not required. You can use any convention your organization prefers, but that's how I like to name things. And yeah, that's pretty much all we need. So one way to do it is go to this directory and run the Maven wrapper and run Maven wrapper Quarkus dev like this. This will download Maven and run it on your machine. So on CI/CD, on environments where you don't perhaps don't have Maven and everything like that installed, it's nice to have the Maven wrapper as well. And in a few moments, we're going to have the application up and running. I'll click the endpoint here, localhost 8080, and you can see our form. And here on source, Java, main view, that's where it's defined. So a simple text field, a button with event listener saying hello to the value of the text, setting the style, and adding the components to the page. Simple as that, and we have the app working. So that was no problem at all, right? Super easy to run Quarkus apps on Maven. The problem here, the issue here is if I need other services, so for example, an API, auth, or something that I want outside of the Vaadin context, that's captured by Vaadin, because by default, Vaadin will get all requests. So that's not ideal because we may want RESTful Web Services, Quarkus Dev UI, all those things are outside. So I may want to split this between different paths. And for that, we're going to need here, the Quarkus Vaadin docs a bit down below. I highly recommend you take a better read at all of this, but the part we're actually interested is here, integrating Vaadin with Quarkus apps and this servlet mapping. So here we can see that it's remapping the URL pattern for something else. So let's copy this code and call it admin servlet, or I prefer app servlet, for example, .java, and copy that code right there. And we can see that Quarkus Vaadin servlet is there for us to import, but web servlet may not be working. Let's try app servlet. Let's see if that works. Yeah. And so /app should be there for us. And yeah, so now our app is running on /app, and on /q I have the Quarkus UI, and I can change and add more resources here so that they don't conflict. So let's make our app/app. And for now, that's all we need to get a Quarkus Vaadin app up and running. And if I have other resources, such as insurance service or resource, .java, and I want to put it on a path of insurance, why can't I add path? I don't have the REST. I need to add the REST extension. So a quick way to do it is enter that directory and use the devbox shell to start another shell with Quarkus already set up, and Quarkus add add to add an extension and add the RESTful extension. This should work. So now, the Java extensions, let's check if those are installed. Java extension pack, yeah, that's there. So this should work. And add path is imported correctly. Java Jakarta WSRS path. And now if I have a get method, and also let's say it produces the type that we want, which is media type application text plain, for example. Let's start with plain text, then we can work with JSON and other data types. And another cool feature is that we don't need to reload anything. Quarkus is very smart and fast about reloading. So if we go to /insurance instead, we can get our hello. and perhaps we want this configured differently. You can now change the mappings any way you want because your app is going to be working both UI and services. In future videos, we're going to add data access, authentication, security, HTTPS, and all that we need for enterprise grade apps. But for now, all I wanted to show is how to set up a Quarkus Vaadin project from the start. See you in the next one.